More than 60 years have gone since Laurel and Leonard, but fans still can't get enough of Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore's on-screen chemistry. Whether they're dancing in the living room or trading quick jokes, their chemistry was so natural, maybe even too natural, that viewers couldn't help but wonder, was there something brewing off-screen? Dick Van Djk, whose given name is Richard Wayne Van Djk, was born on December 13, 1925, in West Plains, Missouri to his mother Hazel and father Frank. The relationship between them was assumed by audiences to be real offstage. The two had a close friendship and a low-key relationship that persisted long after the last episode, but they never spoke publicly about it. The cameras went dark, and the truth remained hidden until today. His mother was a stenographer, and his father was a good salesman. Dick grew up in Danville, Illinois, with his younger brother Jerry, who went on to become an actor and who played a role in the Dick Van Djk show. The Van Djk family has Dutch, English, Irish, and Scottish ancestry. Interestingly, it all starts with the Mayflower passenger John Alden. Dick was involved in school choir and drama, and he briefly considered becoming a minister, but ultimately decided against it. In 1944, while World War II was in full swing, Dick was a radio disc jockey in Danville. Shortly after, he joined forces with Phil Erickson to form a comedy act called Eric and Van the Merry Mutes. Despite being too underweight to be a pilot trainee at first, he eventually became a radio announcer and entertained troops across the U.S. It wasn't until 2004 that he finally earned his high school diploma. Joined forces with a former Army buddy who worked for CBS to secure a 7-year contract for Dick. He began his television career at WDSU-TV in New Orleans and began guesting on national programs by the mid-1950s. Dick even co-hosted the CBS morning show with Walter Cronkite. In 1959, he made his Broadway debut in The Girls Against the Boys and reprised the role the following year in. Despite receiving mixed reviews for his performance in Bye Bye Birdie, Dick was honored with a Tony Award for his work from 1961 to 1966. He then went on to star in The Dick Van Dyke Show, playing the role of Rob Petrie, a television comedy writer. His on-screen wife Laura was played by Mary Tyler Moore, and the couple won multiple Emmys. In 1964, Dick played Bert the Sweet and Mr. Dawes' run in Mary Poppins. Despite facing mockery for his British accent, the film was a huge hit. Despite a few box office failures, Dick Van Djk continued to thrive in the 60s and 70s, landing roles in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and other hits. In the 80s, he took a break from big screen roles and focused more on television, appearing in a remake of The Country Girl in 1982 alongside Faye Dunaway, and playing a rare bad guy role as a killer judge in Matlock in 1986. He was also a regular on Airwolf that same year. His 1989 Emmy nomination for The Golden Girls, in which he co-starred with his son Barry, was his first in over a decade. Despite turning down the lead in The Omen, Van Dyke's 1990 role as a villainous district attorney in Dick Tracy helped revitalize his career. This, in turn, led to his breakout role, Dr. Mark Sloan of Diagnosis Murder, which he co-starred in from 1993 until 2001. In real life, Van Djk became fascinated with computer animation after buying an Amiga in 1991. He went on to work on visual effects for his TV shows and showcase his work at SIGGRAPH, a computer conference. With a musical soul, Van Djk formed an a cappella group called Dick Van Djk and the Fantastics in 2000. They sang at Lakers games and appeared on TV shows like Larry King Live. Later on, he released solo music, including a jazz album. Following the release of his album in 2017 and a Christmas duet with Jane Lynch in 2018, fans were ecstatic when he returned to Mary Poppins' world as Mr. Dodd Jr. in Mary Poppins Returns. In 2023, CBS honored him with a birthday special, Dyke Van Djk 98 Years of Magic, and in December 2024, he was. Dyke Van Djk's personal life took an unusual turn on February 12, 1948, when he married Marjorie Willett on air during a radio show called Bride and Groom. The couple had 4 children. Dyke Van Djk was featured in Coldplay's touching music video All My Love, which he co-produced with his wife Arlene Silver in his late 90s. Passion, joy, and creativity do not diminish with age, they only grow. Children Christian Barry Stacy and Carrie Beth. The couple coexisted for a while before splitting up and divorcing in 1984. In 1976, Van Djk began dating actress Michelle Triola Marvin, and the two dated for over 30 years, sharing a home until Michelle's death in 2009. Despite his undying love for Michelle, Van Djk admitted that his affair with Michelle contributed to the end of his marriage to Marjorie. Van Djk found love again in 2012 when he wedded Arlene Silver, a makeup artist 46 years his junior. The two had met 6 years earlier at the SAG Awards and stayed close ever since. Their relationship was filled with love and laughter, despite the age gap. Family has always been important to Van Djk. His son Barry, as well as his grandsons Shane and Carrie, were regulars on Diagnosis, Murder, and his other children and grandchildren appeared in guest spots with him on television. His son Chris took a different path. He was an Oregon district attorney who sentenced the notorious I-5 killer Randall Woodfield in the 1980s. Tragically, in 1987, Dyke's granddaughter Jessica Van Djk died from Rhea syndrome. This tragedy deeply affected Van Djk, who remained active in his church, taught Sunday school, and read religious thinkers like Martin Buber. He began doing public service announcements to raise awareness about the dangers of giving aspirin to children. In 2013, at the age of 87, Dietrich Bonhoeffer had a terrifying experience when his Jaguar caught fire on a California highway. Fortunately, a passerby pulled him to safety, and he was unharmed. On a political note, Van Djk voted for Bernie Sanders in the 2020 and 2016 presidential primaries. In 2024, he supported Kamala Harris. During the wildfires in California that year, he was rescued from his Malibu home 1 month later, but he had to be evacuated due to another fire. Thankfully, his house was safe both times. Dyke Van Djk has been open about his physical and mental health struggles throughout the years. Perhaps the biggest obstacle he had to overcome was his alcoholism. He struggled with drinking for a long time. In 1972, he decided to do something about it. He checked himself into a hospital and had 3 weeks of treatment. Thankfully, he beat his addiction. Has been sober since. Along with alcoholism, Van Djk battled a long history of cigarette smoking. He smoked heavily throughout his adult years, which is taxing on anyone's system. In 2013, he decided to quit, and he revealed in an interview that he had been using Nicorette gum for over 10 years to stay smoke-free. It wasn't an easy road, but it showed his determination to take better care of himself. However, not everything was so cut and dried when it came to health issues. By 2006, Van Djk had begun. In May 2013, Van Djk made an unexpected Twitter post about his titanium dental implants. He had been dealing with an unusual issue with his head for 7 years, which made it hard for him to sleep and left him extremely exhausted. Despite doctors running tests, no one could determine the cause of the pain. In the meantime, he had to cancel some public appearances due to a lack of energy. May have been the cause of his problems, but doctors never confirmed it. It gave him and his fans a possible idea of what had been bothering him for a long time. Despite everything, Van Djk kept his humor and strength. He wasn't afraid to talk about his struggles, whether it was beating an addiction, quitting smoking, or dealing with mysterious illnesses. His courage and strength served as an inspiration to many. We must seek help and progress towards healing. Mary Tyler Moore was born in 1936 in Brooklyn, New York. She grew up in a Catholic Irish-American household with two younger siblings, John and Elizabeth. Her father worked as a clerk, and the family lived in different areas of Brooklyn and Queens. When Mary was 8 years old, her family relocated to Los Angeles because her uncle, who was in the entertainment industry, thought it would be good for them. Mary attended Catholic schools both in New York and Los Angeles. Tragedies befell Mary's family in later years as well. Her sister Elizabeth passed away too soon from a cocktail of alcohol and painkillers, and her brother died of kidney cancer when he was 47 years old. Mary first gained fame in the 1950s as an elf dancer for Hot Point appliance commercials. In just 5 days, she rapped for $6,000, a fortune at the time. However, her employment ended when she became pregnant, and her elf costume couldn't hide her growing belly. She also made cameo appearances in other commercials. Although she first gained recognition for her appearances on album covers and small screen roles, she truly came into her own in 1961 when she landed the role of Laura Petrie on The Dick Van Dyke Show. The role catapulted her to stardom, and her stylish capri pants even became a fashion trend. The show was a smashing success, and fans couldn't get enough of her enigmatic voice and legs in Richard Diamond, Private Detective. The Mary Tyler Moore Show, which Mary hosted for 5 years, and for which she won an Emmy, was a groundbreaking television series about a single woman working in a newsroom. The show was groundbreaking for its time, inspiring and humorous, and it ran for 7 seasons, during which Mary won a slew of accolades, 29 Emmys in total. After that, she tried her hand at various specials and shows, some of which were successful while others were not. Despite everything that had happened, Mary Tyler Moore remained a beloved icon in television history. She was a trailblazer who made people laugh and empowered women worldwide. Mary Tyler Moore wasn't only successful on television. She also dabbled in theater and movies with a lot of creativity. Mary's Broadway career began in 1966 with Holly Golightly, a musical version of Breakfast at Tiffany's. The show was a failure, and it closed before it officially opened. Mary later admitted that she had bronchial pneumonia while performing, but it didn't stop her from going on to appear in Whose Life Is It Anyway in 1980 and Sweet Sue in 1987, both of which had respectable runs on Broadway in the 1980s. In 2003, she co-produced Noises Off and Safe Sex, 2 of her 5 plays. In addition, she was cast in Neil Simon's Rose's Dilemma, but she left before the show opened because Simon was upset that she hadn't memorized her lines and was using an earpiece to keep track of script revisions. Mary's film career began with a small role in Operation Mad Ball 1957. In her film career, Mary Tyler Moore has starred in Thoroughly Modern Millie, Change of Habit, and Elvis Presley's Change of Heart. Her breakout role was as a grieving mother in Ordinary People, 1980, for which she received an Oscar nomination. Moore has also appeared in a slew of made-for-TV flicks, including Lincoln, First You Cry Heart Sounds, and Stolen Babies, the latter of which garnered her an Emmy in 1993. A tale of love and tragedy unfolds as 18-year-old Mary wed her 28-year-old neighbor Richard Mere, a cranberry juice salesman. Not long after the wedding, she became pregnant and gave birth to her only child, a son named Richard Carlton Mere Jr. Sadly, Richard and Mary's marriage wasn't meant to be. They divorced in 1962. Later that year, Mary with Grant Tinker, a high-ranking CBS executive who would later become NBC's head. The couple appeared to be a love and career power couple during their time together, as they founded MTM Enterprises, the production company behind The Mary Tyler Moore Show. However, they had some rocky patches. In 1973, they temporarily separated, made up, and eventually parted ways for good in 1979. They divorced in 1981. In the early 1980s, Mary dated several A-listers, including Warren Beatty, comedian Steve Martin, and director Michael Lindsay Hogg. It ended when Mary wanted a commitment, and he didn't. One of the worst things that ever happened to Mary happened on October 14, 1980, when her son Richard, who was 24 years old, died in an accident. When the gun went off, he was holding a small .410 shotgun, and it was later found out that the model had a hair trigger. The film Ordinary People, in which Mary starred as a bereaved mother, had just come out a few weeks before. Despite her grief, Mary found love again in 1983 at Dr. Robert Levine, a 29-year-old cardiac specialist, and Mary's mother had a house call the previous year. Strangely, this occurred shortly after Mary and her mother returned from a private meeting with Pope John Paul II at the Vatican. Mary and Dr. Levine were happily married for over 30 years, until Dr. Levine's death in 2017. Mary also battled alcoholism for a long time, but she took charge of her health by checking into the Betty Ford Center in 1984. In 1969, at the height of her career, Mary was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, a lifelong disease that required her to monitor her blood sugar every day. Despite the challenges, she did not let it prevent her from quitting smoking and ending her 3 packs a day habit for good. Mary Tyler Moore was not only an incredible television star, she was also incredibly courageous. Although she overcame obstacles and utilized her platform to raise awareness and advocate for more research, Mary endured additional health scares in her later years. In 2011, she underwent surgery to remove a meningioma and a non-cancerous brain tumor, and although the operation was successful, her condition worsened in the years that followed. By 2014, close acquaintances had donated to the Juvenile Diabetes Research Fund to honor U.S. Speaker Dennis Hastert for his efforts to secure government funding for diabetes research. Mary's health took a turn for the worse in early 2017. She was placed on a ventilator at Greenwich Hospital in Connecticut after suffering from pneumonia. Tragically, she passed away on January 25, 2017 at the age of 80, with the official cause of death being cardiopulmonary arrest, which means her heart and lungs had shut down due to complications from diabetes. Mary Tyler Moore was laid to rest in a private, quiet ceremony at Oakland Cemetery in Fairfield, Connecticut. Despite the health problems she had in recent years, she remained strong, elegant, and full of zest. Her fight against diabetes and her work to help others with the disease were inspiring. Her death was a devastating loss for her loved ones and the millions of fans around the world who had watched her shine on screen since childhood. As a result of her work as an advocate and her enduring performances, Mary Tyler Moore became a beloved actress and an inspiration to many. Her political views changed throughout the years, reflecting her independent and liberal mindset. In the 1960s and 1970s, Mary was seen as a moderate or liberal, but she didn't always choose a side. Longtime friend and co-star Edna revealed to the O'Reilly Factor in 2011 that Moore's opinions changed over the years. In 1972, she shocked most people by endorsing Republican President Richard Nixon's re-election bid. 8 years later, in 1980, she supported Democratic President Jimmy Carter's re-election bid, appearing in one of his campaign commercials. This demonstrated that Moore was not committed to a particular political party. she voted for candidates based on her beliefs at the moment. TV host Bill O'Reilly made note of Mary's growing conservatism in an interview she gave to Parade magazine in 2009. In the interview, Mary explained her stance, describing herself as a libertarian centrist who did not fully identify with either major party. She mentioned her enjoyment of watching Fox News and listening to pundits like Charles Crow-Utamer and Bill O'Reilly. Mary also indicated that she would have campaigned for Republican Senator John McCain. In an interview she gave to the PBS Pioneers of Television in 2013, she discussed her beliefs on feminism and how iconic feminist Gloria Steinem tried to recruit her into the women's movement of the 1970s. Mary, though a believer in women's rights, also believed that childbearing was among the most important things a woman could do. Mary Tyler Moore never felt that a career was necessary for a woman's fulfillment. Her social and political views may have changed over the years, but she never changed who she was. Moore always took the time to reflect on her surroundings and wasn't afraid to go against the grain when necessary. In 1961, she landed a breakthrough role as Laura Patry on the Dyke Van Djk show, and she inserted a brought her natural charisma and wit to the screen. She became the showstopper in an instant. Her carefree energy and trademark capri pants weren't just fashion, they were a symbol of a new era in television. But what truly made their chemistry magical was their collaboration with Dyke Van Djk. As he put it, "The chemistry that happened between us was just serendipity." Mary echoed this sentiment when she called Dick one of the, since his initial question upon arriving on set was, "Can this girl do comedy?" Reminiscing about how the happenstance casting brought her further due to their amazing chemistry, Mary said that people often wish they were together in real life because their on-screen chemistry was so believable. However, their relationship was characterized by respect and friendship, not romance. In their memoirs, Mary wrote about it in After All, and Dick wrote about it in My Lucky Life and Out of Show Business. While Mary Tyler Moore and Dyke Van Djk had one of television's most beloved pairings, their real lives gradually drifted apart. Mary went from being a plump, fresh-faced newcomer to a household name in a flash, thanks in large part to Dick's unwavering support. This is the real Mary Tyler Moore effect: talent, timing, chemistry, and niceness colliding in harmony. Their on-screen chemistry was undeniable, but their personal pain kept them apart. They could have grown closer if they had shared experiences of fame, pressure, and heartbreak, but instead they carried each other's burdens. The reason they didn't speak to each other wasn't because they didn't care. Rather, it was because they were fighting internal battles. In a parallel universe, they would have supported each other through their struggles. Despite the challenges they faced, their friendship blossomed beyond the limelight. Unfortunately, time and distance stifled their connection, and they never rekindled their initial connection. They drifted apart not out of animosity or strife, but in the subtle way that life does when we suffer alone. In interviews, they still spoke highly of each other, but they never once mentioned reaching out to each other during those crucial moments when a deeper, more intimate relationship could have blossomed. As Mary passed away in 2017, it marked the end of an extraordinary legacy. For Dick, who had rekindled his love with Mary in 2012 and spent his later years in contemplation, the memory of their lost intimacy lingers like a gentle sting. Their story serves as a reminder that sometimes it's not conflict or wrath that separates people, but rather the quiet in the moments that matter most. As their careers took off, they quietly dealt with personal pain behind the scenes. Nevertheless, their bond always had a spark, and they reunited a few times, such as at the Gene game in 2003, and every time, the warmth between them was evident. The world was blessed with something truly special: the Dyke Van Djk show, which had characters we still remember today. Their chemistry was unmatched, and they made millions laugh while quietly carrying personal pain. As Dyke Van Djk carries on in his 90s, his voice reverberates with the kind of wisdom that comes from a long and meaningful life. He remembers Mary fondly, and maybe with that same quiet, he wonders if many of us carry about someone we once cared about deeply. Their story isn't about fame or shows, it's about connection and timing. In later interviews, he admitted that Mary had changed him more than any woman ever had. He spoke with love, respect, and maybe a little regret, wishing he had said more while she was alive. And the fact that even the most committed relationships can end, but the love lives on in reminiscences, jokes, and the hearts of those who continue to watch them shine on screen. If you like this in-depth look into their journey, please hit that like button, share your favorite moment from their careers in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more touching Hollywood tales like this one. Cheers!